I'm Steve.
And I'm Kelly.
And this is Coupled with Chaos.
Apple Cider Vinegar from Netflix. Not sure why this thing was called Apple Cider Vinegar. It was really...
I mean, we had that conversation. It was a very brief reference. It did seem odd.
And it was like a vision type of thing. I thought it was like she peddled apple cider vinegar.
You wondered. I thought that from the title. Like this was going to be the person that, started that trend of people
Like
taking
you
apple
had
cider vinegar every day.
An apple cider vinegar enema or something. Like this was it. Like I only consumed apple cider vinegar for a year, and this is what happened. I guess this would be, you'd be hired as an influencer for apple cider vinegar.
Probably.
That would be something. So this is all based, this is the Belle Gibson story, based on, I would say, two things. One, there's kind of a book, The Woman Who Fooled the World, and kind of just news reports of Belle Gibson.
Of which there are plenty.
Yeah. Well, I would say when this happened, I think when I saw it, I thought this was more current than it was. This all broke in 2015. Mm-hmm. The premise here is that, well, Netflix made this a 6-part miniseries. Is that what you would call this?
Yeah.
At this point, I don't know how.
Well, this particular one, the apple cider vinegar one, was a docudrama, is what it would be called. A docudrama is a dramatized based on a documentary.
It was long. There was a lot to it. I found while watching it...
I did binge it all in one day.
That I did just want to go and... just get the news reports and stuff during the show. Because, I don't know, I'm not as big on the drama part of this as I am on the docu part of this. It's like 6 hours of my life.
Yeah, I was dying to know what was factual and what was dramatized. So I then went on to watch other documentaries
we did too,
and interviews.
So I guess the premise of this is that Belle was a early social media influencer, probably before there was social media, where there were social media influencers. Mm-hmm. She... I think...
capitalized on the opportunity.
Yes. I think that we'll get into that first. She said that she was diagnosed with cancer, is what she said. And that she was healing herself or keeping the cancer at bay with a healthy diet. And that evolved into an app.
Yeah, because she liked to cook. And so she had all these recipes that she'd come up with. And she used the cancer story as a way to promote an app that she had some people design with her to promote her recipes. So she subsequently came out with a printed cookbook as well. But it had a forward in the book telling her cancer story and how she used this lifestyle of eating to, she said, cure her cancer.
Sure. That she was diagnosed with cancer that allowed her like 4 months to live, and here she was.
But conveniently, every time she encountered any contrary, I guess, non-fans or any question about her validity or anything about the cancer, she basically would come up with, to avoid any further negative responses, she would come up with, my cancer's back, or I have cancer in a new place, or now I have cancer riddled throughout my body, and just to get, sympathy.
Well,
and then distract from whatever was about to come out that was negative.
I think when you look at this and you look at the whole, I guess, package here, it's hard to kind of, I don't really have sympathy for her, but ultimately that she has some underlying mental health issues.
Clearly. Yes, and this became more obvious when we looked at other documentaries that got more into her childhood. We watched one that just came out last week.
On Netflix.
Yes, and that one got more into her childhood, interviews with her sibling and her mother's family, because she passed away, the stepdad, other close family members. And basically it came out that people had researched her actual social media presence prior to this, prior to her adult years when she was a teenager. Turns out she was, the goth and
at 14,
into a skate club and had begun making up health-related stories even back then.
It started at the age of 14.
Yes.
When the drama here was that a boyfriend had broken up with her at like a skate park. This was the drama that they had, and that she feigned a heart condition.
Yeah.
And then said that she was hospitalized. And she ended up saying that she had 3 heart surgeries. She was dead on the table for minutes. All of this was early at the age.
That was her first attempt at making up medical stories for attention.
And evidently there was what we'd learned in some of the other documentaries, the best place to go look is honestly for these other documentaries, if you watched it, would be, I'd look at YouTube and the Australia 60 Minutes
interview
pieces that they had done. I think that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
The thought is so she faked this heart condition, said she was supposed to have heart surgery, but obviously never did. And I guess she posted that she had died and needed heart valve replacement, but that she didn't have money for it, is what she said.
In Apple Cider Vinegar, the interview that she did at the end, when she'd been all found out and left Australia, in the movie she went to California and did an interview for $75,000. That, in reality, ended up being the UK 60 Minutes interview.
Oh, no, the Australia is what that was. Australia 60 Minutes is what that was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So all of that was, but in the movie, that California move just didn't happen.
Yes.
It's, as you go through it, I thought it was pretty interesting to see what they had dramatized and what they hadn't. So when you think about who she is, and that from nothing she got this app created.
Yeah, I mean, she had, an illegitimate child living in a rundown apartment with a rundown guy, and went from there to living a lavish lifestyle, traveling, buying a fancy house.
Just as smart in general. Like, there can be bad people who are smart business people.
Yep.
If she had gone about this the hard way, probably could have been a successful person.
Sure.
I mean,
she could have found another angle to market her recipes. I mean, they were quite popular. Well, not just because of the cancer angle. Like, people said the food was good and that the app had great features that other apps at the time didn't have. Shopping lists and pantry items and all that kind of thing. So it seemed like she, it was well thought out.
In the drama, they have her as kind of a master manipulator of using people and getting what she needed out of them.
And that's probably legitimate from what we've seen.
Yeah, because this guy in the drama, Clive is
her partner.
Is the partner, not the father of the child, but the partner that she stayed with. Yes. And so he was like an app web developer,
A techie guy.
kind of guy. And so in the show, they kind of played it like she chose him and she was with him for what she could use him for.
Right.
They did the show in 6 parts: Toxic, Clean Sheets, Pink Dolphins, Mama Aya, Casseroles, and Tapeworm are the 6 different episodes that they had done. Her start, they modeled it after, I guess Mila Blake is who they had as the character in the drama. Now, there
was a real person.
Yes.
With the same story, essentially.
And I think that Mila Blake story is probably, other than maybe the Belle Gibson stuff, is maybe the most real.
Pretty interesting story.
It might be the most real.
Yeah.
They really went scene for scene, word for word. I think Mila's mother's cancer, was a little different than what they played. It was
it was a different kind of cancer. She actually had breast cancer instead of colon cancer.
Yeah. That was like the only difference. But if you look, there's no doubt that this Mila is based after Jess.
Yes.
Who was somebody who had, as they showed it, cancer on her. It was her left arm, I think.
It's very aggressive cancer.
And she had neglected to get her arm amputated.
Because she was young, didn't want to be, she was 22, I think, at the time, or 23, and didn't want to be without her arm. And so she wanted to explore other options. Her father was against it. Her mother, wanted to support her in whatever she decided. Her own mother had died of cancer and had done chemotherapy, and it hadn't worked. And so, obviously she and her daughter had both witnessed that. And, I think the girl was genuinely afraid of seeking normal therapies only to have them fail and, suffer horribly for it. So she wanted to do other things. So she did Gerson therapy. I actually know a lot about Gerson therapy.
They called it Hirsch therapy in
the
drama.
movie, but it's actually Gerson therapy.
Right.
And I know a lot about it. I researched it extensively when my mother had cancer, because she was a stroke survivor and was actually paralyzed and bedbound. And because of that, when she found out that she had a stage 4 lung cancer and melanoma, she was unable to get any traditional treatments, because you have to be ambulatory to be able to process the toxins out of your body from chemotherapy. And because
at least that's what they said, I guess, at the time.
At the time when that happened, that was 2014. So because of that, and already being stage 4, there just wasn't anything they could do for her. And so she died very quickly in 6 weeks from finding out that she had it. So during that time, I was looking for alternatives because there was nothing they could do for her. And I'd actually researched the Gerson therapy and learned a lot about it at that time. So I knew exactly what it was when it came up. Even though they gave it a different name, I knew exactly what it was.
I think that a lot of people probably identify with this. I guess the foil to Belle Gibson in this was what they called the manager that was the manager of Mila Blake and turned into the manager for Belle. But in reality, we find out that this Chanel was really, in real life, this Chanel was at some point a friend.
A best friend.
Yes, of Belle. But as you watch the documentaries, I got a little funny feeling about the real life Chanel. She seems to be everywhere in every documentary. And so for me, I think like Belle had done something to really tick her off. and I think if you've made it your mission to put somebody down and it feels to me like Chanel went out of her way.
Well, she said that, it bothered her because she was the only one who knew the truth and that she had tried repeatedly to get Belle to, stop perpetuating the lie. And she refused to do it. And had many occasions that she could have done it and chose not to. And so that was why she decided to out her.
Yeah. And when it got a point to where, like, the gig was up, she doubled down on 2 additional cancers is what she doubled down on.
Yeah, and even when she did the 60 Minutes interview, she said that while no, she never had cancer, that some fly-by-night doctor that no one could ever locate, who she said vanished,
yes,
conveniently,
right,
had told her she had cancer even though she didn't, and that she lived believing that she had cancer. And so she claims now that at the time that she said she had cancer and did these alternative things, she thought that it was working. But it's not really believable.
Yeah, it's so interesting. The full 60 Minutes interview, Australia 60 Minutes, this interview, if you watch the show, and you know how they said at the end to Google it?
Yeah.
I would
that
think
annoyed me so badly.
This is the thing that you have to look. If you made it through all 6 episodes, I think you really have to watch the 60-minute interview. They alluded to it for maybe, I don't know, a 10 or 15-minute bit in one of the drama episodes, but the real life interview is just eye-opening.
The interviewer was so harsh.
Yeah.
She was not letting her off the hook at all.
Tara Brown is who that was. It's 9 now, or Channel 9 out of Australia. So
we found a thing online that gave a blow-by-blow comparison between the film
that was good too
and reality, and I found that very helpful and compelling to go blow by blow. This was factual, this was a variation, and this was the truth. I thought that was really helpful.
Yeah, we'll post that in the Facebook group and so you'll kind of see some of those. We'll tag that along with this episode. And so we'll get into all that and kind of more as we go on.
Thank you for listening.
You can listen to the rest of this episode
by subscribing to our Coupled with Chaos channel on Apple,
by subscribing to our Patreon,
or by subscribing to our Supercast
for $3.99 a month,
where you can hear us talk about reality shows,
real life, and more on our podcasts,
covering shows airing on TLC, A&E, Bravo, and the WE Network.
Just follow the instructions in the show notes.
Tell your friends about this podcast.
And rate and review us on your favorite podcast player.
Follow us at Coupled with Chaos on all the socials.
Or contact us directly by email at coupledwithchaos@gmail.com.